Popular science fiction and fantasy tales tell of eldritch horrors from beyond the stars, hostile aliens and ancient outer gods that lie in wait in the vast, dark forest of the cosmos, ready to destroy mankind. But reality is horrifying enough, and there are plenty of true events that are just as terrible and unexpected as anything from science fiction. And mankind has never needed any help destroying itself. The Great War has left many in dire straits, particularly young families like yours whose fathers have gone off to fight. But the needs of the family do not stop just because dad's not home. So as the man of the house, you go out to get water for the family. You head out to the river under cover of darkness to fetch some water for tonight's soup, hoping to avoid any soldiers and be back home before there is any trouble. You fill your bucket at the Bierbza River, a task you have done 100 times. And while most kids would be scared, you are grateful to be outside under the stars. The river is calm and the atmosphere is peaceful. That is, until you hear something in the distance. Frozen with fear, you peer out into the fog where the sounds are coming from. You recognize the sound of gunfire. Clearly, there's a battle nearby. You stand still and begin to hear the sounds of footfalls coming your way. A group of German soldiers emerges from the mist, guns drawn, pointing at you. They are yelling, but you can't understand what they're saying. The soldiers continue to yell at you, brandishing their rifles, when you begin to register a ghostly new figure appearing out of the fog. You witness more terrifyingly disfigured wraiths emerge from the darkness, shooting and stabbing the German soldiers that had been menacing you. In only a few seconds, the battle is over, and you, still frozen, look out on a scene from hell. Welcome to Rogue Records, where we invite you to sit back, relax, and hear the true tale of history's undead army of the damned. It's the early 1900s in Europe, and the Habsburg-led Austro-Hungarian Empire has been exerting its influence into the Slavic countries to its south, culminating in annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1908. Spurred on by this event and several smaller conflicts in the region, Serbian nationalism surged and a group of Serbs calling themselves the Black Hand rose to prominence. Nice logo, right? A skull, a dagger, and what looks like a bottle of poison. Surely the level-headed people behind such an insignia wouldn't do anything reckless that could plunge the entire world into chaos. Right? Wrong. In 1914, a small group of Bosnian assassins backed by the Black Hand murdered the heir to the Habsburg dynasty, a man named Archduke Franz Ferdinand, on June 28, 1914. The Habsburgs, seeking both revenge and a way to lessen Serbian influence in Bosnia, declared war on Serbia 1 month later on July 28th. Then Russia joined to aid Serbia, who they had long seen as an ally and protectorate. Then the Germans sided with the Habsburgs and declared war on Russia because both countries saw Russia as a mutual enemy and had a treaty requiring mutual support against Russia. The French sided with the Russians as they had financial entanglements, and the French saw the Germans as an enemy due to their loss of territory to Germany during the Franco-Prussian War a few decades earlier. As a consequence of this, Germany invaded Belgium in order to get to France. This pulled Belgium into the war despite their desired neutrality. Then the UK sided with France due to existing treaties, family relations, and to prevent German domination of Western Europe. And Montenegro sides with Serbia due to their shared desire to prevent Austria-Hungary from continuing to annex their territory. Japan declared war on Germany in order to support their ally Great Britain. Then the Ottoman Empire sided with Germany, largely over their enmity with Serbia, Montenegro, Bulgaria, and Greece, after their defeat at the hands of the Slavic nations during the First Balkans War. And finally, Italy sided with France and the UK, due to ongoing hostilities with Austria-Hungary, as the Hungarians had annexed Italian-speaking regions along the border between the two countries. Thus, the Italians saw World War I as a war of independence for the stolen land of their countrymen. And this was the state of affairs in 1915, where our story takes place. The Eastern Front of World War I saw fierce fighting between the defending Germans and the Russian forces that were pushing their way west. The Germans needed a way to reliably and quickly get supplies to the front, as well as establish a defensive line to hold off the Russians. So, they identified a fortress near the border that had both a railway and easy access to the Birbza River, so that supplies could come by train or boat as needed. This was Oswiec Fortress in what is now modern-day Poland. There was just one problem for the Germans. The Russians were already occupying the fortress. The Russian forces of the 226th Zemlyansky Infantry Regiment held the fortress under the command of a young lieutenant named Vladimir Kotlinski. Yeah, interesting thing about Vladimir, he was the toughest man alive. But we'll get into that later. The Germans were so hell-bent on taking Oswiec, they actually attempted to take it 3 different times. First time, in September 1914, the Germans brought their artillery to bear on the fortress. But apparently they forgot the Russians also had artillery. The second attempt at taking the fort occurred in February and March of 1915, with the same results. The embarrassed German army would not accept another defeat in Russian hands. So for their third attempt, they devised a new plan. This new plan was made possible by the work of a German scientist named Fritz Haber. I know, right? You're probably thinking, any plan that starts with a German scientist probably isn't going to end well. And you know what? You'd be right. This isn't going to end well at all. And that's because Haber is known as the father of chemical warfare. And it was his work developing chlorine gas that laid the groundwork for what the Nazis would do with Zyklon B during the Holocaust just a few decades later. Which is ironic given that Haber himself was Jewish. The new gas was placed in glass containers and encased inside artillery shells marked on the outside with a green cross. And then they were mass-produced. They made so many of them that there was actually a food shortage because the materials normally used for fertilizer were repurposed for chemical warfare. Armed with their new weapons, the Germans set out under Field Marshal Paul von Hindenburg for Oswiec. Hindenburg is a name some might recognize, as he would later go on to be president of the Weimar Republic and cede power to Hitler when he named him chancellor in 1933. Vladimir Kotlinski looked out from the walls of the fort at the German army that had formed up just outside the range of their artillery. He watched as the German leaders stood at the front of the army and looked right back at him through binoculars. They stood watching the fort, men and guns arrayed but unused, just as they had done every day for the past few days. But they didn't attack. It's as if they were waiting for something. But what?
Lieutenant, what do you see? Are they attacking?
No, they're just standing there again.
Have they moved their artillery in range of the fort?
Nope, they haven't moved at all.
Maybe they're waiting for reinforcements.
They already outnumber us 10 to 1. I don't think that's it. Whatever the reason, at least they're staying over there. Let's hope it stays that way. And time passed on while the Germans waiting for the exact right moment to implement their new plan. One the Russians were simply not prepared for. The moment had arrived. The wind had shifted and was now blowing away from the German army and towards Oswiec Fortress. The Germans were now ready to unleash death upon their foes. While the Russian artillery could simply not reach the Germans because they were just too far away, the Germans only needed to fire close enough to the fortress to unleash the gas. Chlorine gas burns the eyes, making it hard to see. It also burns unprotected skin as the harsh chemicals saturate the surface. But the real horror is that it combines with moisture in the lungs, creating hydrochloric acid, destroying the surrounding tissue and causing death by suffocation. The gas was a new kind of weapon, and the Russians were caught unprepared. They had no gas masks to protect themselves, and the losses they suffered were catastrophic. Over the next few hours, more than 90% of the Russian soldiers guarding the fort died. Out of the roughly 900 men stationed at the fort, only 60 were left when Lieutenant Kotlinski rallied his men one last time.
They've killed us.
Yes, they've killed us. I will never see my family again. None of us will see another sunrise. But I will not let them win. They can't do this to me, to us. I won't let them get away with this. And neither will you. We will have our revenge.
Satisfied that enough time had passed for the gas to have worked, Hindenburg finally acts.
Send 5 squads to capture the fortress. Let's start packing up our supplies. By this time tomorrow, I want to be fully settled behind the walls.
And so the Germans approached the fort, fully expecting to walk over the dead bodies of their Russian adversaries without any resistance at all. And so they were shocked to their core when ghastly figures with pale green skin and weeping sores came barreling out of the fog towards them. The Germans were so freaked out by these seemingly undead soldiers running towards them that they began a hasty retreat so disorganized that many of them became entangled in their own barbed wire barricades. Vladimir led his men from the front, suffering not 1 but 2 bayonet wounds during the conflict. And while they didn't win, how could they? They were essentially walking corpses. They did buy enough time for the remaining allies of the fort to deny the Germans their victory. With the fort and its associated railway destroyed, Oswick lost all strategic value to the Germans, and the campaign was abandoned. The attack of the dead men, as the battle would later be dubbed, became legendary among Russian military forces. The tenacity and pride of the soldiers is celebrated to this day, and Lieutenant Kotlinski, the toughest man alive, or, dead, is memorialized with a statue that now sits in Saikov City in Russia. If you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. I promise to get back to you as soon as I can.